Hey everyone, welcome back to Shutter Magazine. I'm Dustin Lucas, and today I'm going to be talking to you about how to go from Photoshop to Lightroom with making custom LUT files. So a lot of times I'm in Lightroom, I'm talking about using custom profiles and how to be more creative with your edits, but still having that efficiency that Lightroom brings. Well, you can certainly do that with custom LUT files. So why is this important? Why are color profiles and things like that important? Well, I can take an image like this, which is like color corrected, something that I took into Photoshop as a smart object to keep my non-destructive sliders intact, and we'll cover that in just a bit. But I can take an image like this in Lightroom and apply custom LUTs, export custom LUTs and bring them into Lightroom, showing you how to use custom color profiles just like this. And what that allows me to do is I don't even have to click on and do any editing in this panel here. I can just apply a custom profile. So what's pretty cool about this is you have all these options in here to create custom profiles. You can use your standard ones, but this really gives me all the flexibility that I want to have from Photoshop, and more specifically what my actions apply, and now I can apply that in Lightroom. It's pretty cool. So any of you that use Lightroom and Photoshop and want to stay in Lightroom and keep things simple and moving fast, I love color profiles. I love being able to export my actions as custom LUTs and bringing them into Lightroom. So let's dive in and talk about how I can do that, right? So first things first, we're going to open up a raw file into Photoshop and start looking at what a smart object can bring to the table. So first things first, if I want to take a file from Lightroom into Photoshop and I want to retain all of my sliders here, I can do that by opening it as a smart object. So all I need to do is right click on my image, go to Edit In, and choose Open as Smart Object in Photoshop, right? So what that's going to do is it's automatically going to open up my file into Photoshop here. So let's jump in and let's open it up twice here because I've already got it open already. So what you'll notice is in the bottom right hand corner there's this little paper symbol here. So if I double click my image at any point, it automatically is going to open me up into Adobe Camera Raw. So once it opens up that filter, you can see my sliders are automatically in Camera Raw. I have the ability to make any adjustments I want. If I want to bring in more clarity, I can do it. If I even want to convert this file to black and white, I can do it. I can do all these things that I want to. Maybe now I want to enable my lens correction, but I want to bring that vignette back down, right? So all these things we can do immediately from Camera Raw, from Lightroom into Photoshop. I go ahead and click OK, and it's automatically going to adjust my image. Pretty cool, right? So there's some things to think about when you're in Lightroom and the limitations of a smart object, right? So first things first is you can't do any pixel manipulation, right? So that starts to really kind of limit what you want to do um, in uh, in Photoshop, right? So our option would be to um, create a blank layer, put it at the very top. We can use the clone stamp tool. Let's see here. Why my workspace? Let's see here. Let's do the photography workspace. I kind of lost everything I needed. So here we can do current and below. And now we can do some cloning, right? So if I want to, for instance, if I wanted to clone this side of my image here and paint that over there, obviously I'm doing a very terrible job here. But if I wanted to update this and change these pipes over, I could do it now right on my file. Here's the problem though. That's all fine if you wanted to update all that kind of stuff. But the problem now is if I change my file again, it's not going to update in those areas, right? So if I wanted to really darken this image down, bring back those highlights, click OK, it's not going to adjust it in the areas that I'm cloning, right? So that's something you want to keep in mind for cloning and stuff like that. So really, I mean, realistically, it becomes a really interesting tool for you to apply and then do layer adjustments and things like that. But that's one of those kind of limitations to the smart object. What I really like about the ability to apply smart filters are for tools like um, portraiture. If I want to apply portraiture and have the flexibility of going back and making adjustments, I can. So I can create a smart filter here, and that allows me, let's zoom in here, to toggle this on and off as it's rendering. But I can also go back into my adjustments here to make any tweaks that I want in here. So it really is nice for a non-destructive edit. It becomes even more powerful for like a tool like Liquify. Like if you're making adjustments and you want to come back in and let's see here, make some quick adjustments to the face here. If I wanted to just kind of do a few adjustments here, nothing crazy, and toggle that before and after preview, just some minor things. Go ahead and click OK. Now I have the ability at any point to go back in and undo or tweak those Liquify settings. So it becomes a really cool tool in order to do that. Then once I click OK here, the biggest advantage of working with Smart Object, or disadvantage of working with the Smart Object after Lightroom, is none of these settings will go back into Lightroom. So this is a rasterized file. This is a TIFF file specifically, so I don't really have the ability to take this now back into Lightroom and have that same flexibility. With the sliders, it's now going to come back in as a TIFF file, no longer a RAW file, so it's definitely something to think about. But smart objects, definitely useful from going from Lightroom to Photoshop and having somewhat of a non-destructive editing profile. Next thing we want to do is looking at layer adjustments, all of these different things, and how we can export those as a custom LUT file and import that into Lightroom as a profile. So let's jump into custom LUTs and how to export those from Photoshop. So one of the more interesting layer adjustment tools in Photoshop is gradient map. This allows you to do some really cool color grading effects and get you a pretty nice black and white effect overall. Now, let's see here. If we choose, let's get nice black and white. Sometimes you have to be careful if you have your gradient map, the white starting in the left and the black. You can hit the reverse button, which is nice, right, if you get the negative effect. But what this allows you to do is really kind of give you a dynamic black and white edit just from applying a really basic gradient map. So this is kind of how I like to convert my images for black and white, just to give them a little more punch. Next thing that I'd want to do with this image is if I want to bring it back to color and keep that same kind of tonality, I can change the blend mode to luminosity. Pretty cool little effect there, just to give my image that little bit of push and kind of grit to it. So this is one of those tools that I don't necessarily have in Lightroom or to make it quite quickly, but it's something that I might want to make into a custom profile. So we'll get to that in just a minute, but looking at a few other adjustments that I can apply as well. Like another kind of cool adjustment is with your black and white layer adjustment, you can take that and change the blend mode to luminosity to give your image a little more of a punch. We can click on auto, and that can kind of help with some of the luminance. This really kind of helps with the luminance of your image, so you can really work that into like skin tones and things like that. But you can see with our image, we can just kind of start to bring in a little more drama to it. Now this isn't dodge and burned and something to the level of like a full effect from Photoshop, but it's more or less to look at these different kind of toning options that we can do within Photoshop more specifically. So we have our gradient map, we have a black and white layer with luminosity. Our next steps, once we would kind of apply something across that we would like to, I can run, let's see if here we can find something a little more specific to what I want to apply. Let's try, oh, remember, in order for us to apply the action that we want, we're gonna have to rasterize our file. So let's do that first, and then we can export our LUT file and go right into Lightroom. So that whether you want to apply multiple layer adjustments or apply an action which automatically applies a bunch of them for you, you're ready to export your color lookup table. So what we want to do is we want to make sure the background is flattened. So like before we were working with a smart object, you would have to flatten your image to where you get a background layer that's locked, and then you'd want to start applying your layer adjustments. That's very important. So now that we have ours applied, we have to keep in mind image layers are not going to translate. So this high pass layer is likely not going to translate into our color profile, but all of these all of these layer adjustments will. So now we can go up to File and we can do Export, Color Lookup Table. So now what I can do is I can export this as whatever I want to name it. I'm just going to call this Action 1 so everything translates the same. I can choose high quality. I don't go maximum just because it has issues when it's translating into Lightroom later. So high is the maximum I would go, and I don't need any other files except this cube file. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And I'll just have it saved to my desktop. I'll call it Action 1. There. Bam, that's it. So now what we need to do is we're going to have to take this file and we're going to open it into Adobe Camera Raw to make sure that it will show up in Lightroom. So I'll go up here to Camera Raw filter, much like we had done before. Our sliders aren't going to be moved, everything's going to stay the same. And so now I need to create a custom profile within Adobe Camera Raw. So I'll go down here to my presets panel, I'll go down to the option, I'm going to click hold option and click on the new preset, and it's going to have a new profile. So we're creating a new color profile. We want this to be in custom profiles. We can choose what group it's going to go into. We want to do tone map, we'll do low, which is normal. And now we're going to do color lookup table. So when I check that box, I'm going to look for my Action 1 cube file. So it's automatically going to select that for us. So I can leave all of this, all of these adjustments as is. I don't need to change anything. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And now, if we want to apply this, we can go into our color profiles, and it's automatically down here at the bottom. Here's my custom profile. That's it. It automatically applies it in Camera Raw by clicking that, and I have an amount slider. But let's jump into Lightroom and use it there as well. So I'll go ahead and click on Close. And I'm going to click OK. And now all we have to do is relaunch Lightroom. That might be a little heavy-handed because now it's going to apply it twice. But now as we went back in, opened it up, our image went from here to there. And now we can launch this into Lightroom. Make sure everything opens up as it should. This is our raw file. Let's jump into the one that we created earlier and apply our different profile to it all together. So if I go down here into custom, I can automatically apply everything there. So I click on action, bam, there we go. And if I want to increase the amount of this, I can, right? So I can drag this amount slider to the right and toggle back and forth to allow that custom profile to come automatically into Lightroom. And it looks like that might be getting a little over the top there. I think with some of the lines on their face, probably from the liquify that we applied initially. But let me go ahead and apply a different profile just to see if that's what it's tied to. There we go, those lines are gone. We want to make sure we're not going too over the top, but as you can see the amount slider, you can definitely apply a lot of this effect to really push your image to the next level. So that's it. Exporting LUTs, bringing them into Lightroom. It's really simple to do, but now you're ready to start exporting your custom lookup tables in Photoshop. You can export those actions, bring them into Lightroom, create an arsenal of custom color profiles to where you can really start pushing your images in a more creative way, but also keeping things super fast. So just showing how this would work on multiple images in Lightroom specifically, like if I wanted to apply this to a bunch of images at once, I can, right? So I can either create a preset or I can quickly apply my custom profile. Let's go down to browse, all the way down here into the custom section, action 1, turn the amount up, and it automatically turns all those images. I can apply that and sync it to multiple images at once. Treatment and profile. And now I have that creative effect. It'll automatically start applying it to all of my images at once just to give them that little more creative flair look. Overall, pretty cool to do, pretty simple, pretty easy. So I definitely urge you to try this out, add it to your workflow. You definitely won't be disappointed, but you want to be a little more subtle on some of your images as well when you're making these kind of adjustments. So it's translating from Photoshop into Lightroom. You definitely want to start with a more subtle approach, but again, you have that amount slider. If you want to back things off, you certainly can, and you have that full flexibility. So that's all I have for you guys this month. Tune in next time. I'll be talking a lot more about some of the newer things in Lightroom and ways to make your workflow even better.